Hello amazing people, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If this is the first time here, hi, my name is Matilda, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for listening back to watch my videos. So today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys 10 things you need to look out for while looking for accommodation here in the UK. I know looking for accommodation is like one of the hardest things for people to do, especially if you're coming from another country and you're an international student. You're like, I hope I get the best accommodation that will be suitable for me. This video is going to be for you because I'm going to be sharing with you guys the do's and don'ts of looking for accommodation here in the UK. So if this is the kind of content you like, please do not forget to give this video a massive thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and turn on that post notification bell so I get notified whenever I post a video. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. The first thing here on my list is, while looking for accommodation, you need to consider the location of that particular accommodation. So yes, depending on the reason why you're coming to the UK, or depending on what you're going to do when you move to that particular accommodation. If you're a student, you need to look for accommodations that are close to your university, especially if you're going to be attending in-person lessons and no longer online. You need to make sure that your accommodation is close to your university. Also, if you're going to be working, you need to consider the location and the distance between your accommodation and your place of work. Because I'm telling you guys, you really do not want to spend so much money when it comes to, transporting yourself from school to your house and from your house to work. Like, you really don't want to spend all your money on just transportation, because sometimes transportation can be very expensive. I know that yes, the bus fares might not be so bad, but there are some days where you might not be able to meet up with the bus and you might have to take the cab. So if your accommodation is far from your destination, you're definitely going to pay more money on taxis and Uber and things like that. Something else you need to consider is how far your accommodation is from like bus stops and train stations. Personally, I think you should really live close to like train stations and bus stops, because it is not every time that you might want to walk to your destination. So you need to make sure that wherever you're going to be staying is close to like bus stops, especially if you're going to be someone that travels a lot, like within cities. From one city to another, you need to make sure that your accommodation is close to the train station, so that when you need to like travel, you can just drag your box and walk to the train station. You don't even need to enter a bus, you don't really need to enter a taxi, you can just walk straight to the train station. I would advise that you check the distance between your accommodation to train stations and bus stops, because it just makes movement for you very easy. Another thing I would like you to put into consideration when it comes to location is if there are shopping centers or malls close to that particular accommodation. Is it easy for you to access things like Lidl, Sainsbury's, Tesco, Asda? Like, are they within reach? You really do not want a situation where before you go grocery shopping, you have to like think about how far it is and how many buses you need to enter. Like, maybe you need to enter like 2 buses and things like that. Like, guys, that would be so stressful. So you have to make sure that wherever you're going to, it is close to like easy shopping centers, it is close to the city center, it is close to Lidl, where you can just go for your grocery shopping and come back. So yeah, these are the things you need to take into consideration when it comes to your location. The next thing you need to consider is what type of accommodation you want. So there are different types of accommodations here in the UK. There is the studio apartment. What do I mean by studio apartment? Studio apartment is a type of house in which you have your bathroom, your kitchen, and your living area all to yourself. You do not share with anybody. Most of the time, there is really no demarcation. So everything is in one room: your kitchen, your bathroom, your living area, and your bed. So yes, studio apartment, you do not share. You have to consider whether you want a studio apartment. I also like to add that while looking for accommodations here in the UK, they have the furnished and unfurnished apartments. So furnished apartment is where you have every single thing in the apartment, like everything that you need and everything that is important will be found in the apartment. For example, you have your bed, your wardrobe. If there is a living area, you will have your chair, your table, maybe a dining area. Depending on the apartment, you will have washing machine, you have your fridge, you have your gas cooker. Like, you just have the basic things that you need to survive, and you really do not need to buy anything. So yeah, that is what we call the furnished apartment. So unfurnished apartment is where there is no furniture at all in that particular accommodation. The only thing that is available is white goods. What do I mean by white goods? White goods here include fridge, cooker, washing machine, depending. So these things will be there in the accommodation, but you won't have things like beds. There won't be no bed, there won't be no wardrobe, there won't be no chair, no table, nothing. So you have to buy like your own furniture while moving into that particular accommodation. And I would also like to add that when it comes to unfurnished accommodations and furnished accommodations, unfurnished accommodations are cheaper than furnished accommodation. So yes, you need to weigh the price and know the one you're able to afford. Another type of accommodation is the shared house. So this shared house is where you are like 3, 4, 5 or 6 people depending on the house and the amount of rooms they have in that particular building. So yes, it can be any number, and you get to share your kitchen, your living area and the bathroom. So they might have like 2 bathrooms in the house, they might have like 1, depending on how many you guys are in that particular accommodation. So yes, this type of accommodations are usually cheaper because you're basically just paying for your room, and sometimes depending on what you're looking for, you might see like ensuite rooms. So ensuite rooms are like rooms that have the bedroom and the bathroom together. You don't have to share the bathroom with anybody. The bathroom is going to be used by only you, but you get to share like the kitchen and the common areas with other people depending on how many you guys are. Another type of accommodation is the flat apartment. So this type of apartment is like the 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, depending on how many rooms they have in that particular accommodation. This one is usually when you have like friends, or when you make friends with people here in the UK. You guys can just decide to rent a particular apartment and share. For example, you have 2 friends and you want to rent a place, you can just decide to rent like 2 rooms and get to share the kitchen and the living area. It depends if there's only 1 bathroom in that particular accommodation or 2, depending on whatever you're looking for. So the third thing on my list is, what are the bills included? I would advise that when you're looking for accommodation, especially if you're a student, you try and look for like bills inclusive, because it is way, you guys, it just helps to release the stress of having to think of, paying your bills and things like that. You know that once you've paid your rent, that means your bill is covered. You need to consider whether you want an apartment that is bills inclusive or not. So when it comes to studio apartment for students, most studio apartments are like bills inclusive, especially if it's furnished. So most of them are bills inclusive. I remember the one I stayed when I first came to the UK, mine was bills inclusive. I did not have to think about my bills. Especially studio apartments that are owned by corporate bodies that help to provide accommodations to students, most of them are bills inclusive. Also, when it comes to shared apartments, most shared apartments are bills inclusive. It's just easier for you because, if you're living in a place with people that you really do not know, you do not want to be burdened with having to go around and asking people to pay their electricity bill, having to tell them to pay your water bill, having to remind people of, you're supposed to pay your water bill this time of the month, and things like that. You guys, it's really stressful. I would advise that you try and get places that are bills inclusive. In a case where you do not see somewhere that is bills inclusive that you like, and you have to pay for bills yourself, you need to know the bills that you're paying for. When it comes to bills, you have the electricity bill, you have the water bill, you have the Wi-Fi bill, you have the heating bill, and you have the council tax. So if you're no longer a student, you're going to be paying for council tax. So when it comes to looking for accommodation, this one is very important. Try and figure out what council tax band that accommodation is, because you guys, council tax is very, very expensive. So you need to make sure that you're not spending so much when it comes to council tax. So I know that council tax A is the cheapest band for council tax, and it goes up to letter H. So letter H is the highest one. So you can imagine A is cheaper than B, B is cheaper than C, C is cheaper than D. It just goes like that until letter H. So these are the things you need to consider before looking for accommodation, especially if you're not a student or if your term time is running out and you're about to graduate. So you really need to look out for these type of things. Also, if you see a house that you like, you need to ask like the landlord or agent how much they pay for things like electricity, water, Wi-Fi, just to make sure that the bill is something that you can afford later on. Because you guys, you need to move into an accommodation that you know that in frequent months you're able to afford and you're able to pay for your rent and your bills. Now that you've decided on the type of accommodation you want, whether you want studio or shared, and also whether you want a bills inclusive accommodation or not, the next thing you need to do is to search for accommodation. So there are different websites for you to search for accommodation. There is Zoopla, there's Rightmove, there's Open Rent, and there is Pairroom. I think if you're looking for more of shared accommodations, Pairroom is just easier for you to search through, because Pairroom just tells you like the amount of people in that accommodation, how many rooms are available, whether it's ensuite or not, the minimum and maximum length of tenancy. So it's just easier for you. I just feel Pairroom is way easier when it comes to like looking for accommodation, especially for shared apartment. So yeah, that's just like a very good website for you to choose from. And also, since you already know what you're looking for, it will be easier for you that when you go onto those websites, you just filter your search than having to waste time going through things that you don't want. So let's assume that you're looking for a studio apartment. Let's say your price per month is about, let's say 600 per month. Filter all that on the accommodation website to make it easier for you. Then you put like whether you want bills inclusive, how many rooms you're looking for, location, if you want it to be like in city center, and just different things. So you can be able to do that when looking for accommodations. It just makes things easier for you than having to waste time searching for things that you know you're not interested in. So the fifth thing on my list for you to do is to book a viewing. So now you've gone on the website, you've seen accommodations that you like. I would advise that when looking for accommodation or when choosing an accommodation, you choose more than 2 accommodations. It just makes it easier for you. Choose about 3 or 5 accommodations, just so that you have like different options. So if you have like 5 accommodations that you've seen and that you really like, and you've checked that, okay, they have what I'm looking for and they're within your price range, the next thing for you to do is to book a viewing. So how do you book a viewing? It's very easy. Most of the time, there is a phone number on the link of that particular accommodation, and to click on that call sign and it will just connect you to the landlord or the agent that is renting that particular accommodation. So it's really not hard, and most of the time whenever you place a call through to them, they usually send you like a message with their email address and they ask you for some documents and you send it to them. You just start the process from there. So it's really not that hard when it comes to like booking a viewing. Also, when it comes to booking a viewing, you have to decide whether you are able to go for an in-person viewing or you want a virtual viewing. I would advise that if you can, try as much as you can to go for an in-person viewing or send someone that will help you to view that particular accommodation. You guys, it is really advisable that you go for your viewings. Like, it is advisable you go and see what you're paying for, because you really do not want a situation of what I ordered and what I received. So yes, you need to go and view that particular accommodation. Also, if it's going to be like an online viewing, make sure that whoever that is doing the video call with you is showing you like the living area, the kitchen, the bathrooms, because you really want to see the state of that accommodation before you move in. You don't want a situation where everywhere is a mess and then you move into that particular place and you do not know that was how it was, because when you made the call they only showed you your bedroom and you're like, okay, your bedroom is fine. No, you need to make sure that you see the living area, the kitchen, the bathroom, like every single thing you need to make sure you see, because you're also going to be using those places. Those common areas are also going to be used by you, so you need to make sure that they are up to the standard you want and it is a place where you are able to live in. The sixth thing on my list is for you to ask questions. No matter how stupid the questions are, or no matter how stupid you think the questions are, you really need to ask questions before signing a tenancy agreement. Questions include, if you're a couple, you need to find out if that accommodation is able to accept couples, especially if it's a shared house. Also, if you're a pet lover or if you love pets, you need to ask if the accommodation allows you to keep pets in that particular accommodation. Some accommodations do not allow pets, so these are the things you need to know. And when it comes to like repairs and maintenance, you need to know who is in charge of repairing and maintaining the property. Whether or not if something spoils in that particular accommodation, are you the one to fix it or is the landlord to fix it? These are like the little things you need to ask and confirm first before you finalize and get that particular accommodation. The next thing on my list is whether or not that particular accommodation needs a guarantor. So a guarantor is someone that you bring that is going to be able to vouch for you and say, okay, this person is going to pay her rent or this person is going to pay his rent. You need to find out if you need a guarantor for that particular accommodation. Most accommodations need guarantors, so that's why you need to confirm. And also, there are some accommodations where if you're not able to provide a guarantor, they might waive that for you. That's if you're able to pay about 3 months rent. So it depends on the agency and it depends on the landlord. You need to ask these questions, because you don't want a situation where you've started the process and when it comes to getting a guarantor, you're hooked. You don't have anyone to bring as guarantor. So you need to ask for these questions, whether or not you need a guarantor. And if you do need a guarantor, you need to figure out what are the requirements you need from the guarantor. Most people will tell you that they need guarantors that are homeowners and are earning about 25,000 per annum. So yes, you need to ask these questions and make sure that whatever they require from that guarantor, the person you're bringing has those requirements. So these are the things you need to sort out before finalizing your tenancy agreements. The next thing on my list is facilities in the building. By now you've seen the house that you like and you're trying to finalize everything. You need to really consider the things they have in that particular accommodation. personally, I love accommodations that have elevators. You guys, I suffered. It's not like I suffered, but I suffered in my studio accommodation. So my studio accommodation was about 3 floors. I was on the second floor, the ground floor, the first floor, and the second floor. And guys, it was always a struggle for me whenever I went like grocery shopping and I have to like carry my things up that stairs. It was always a struggle because my things were always heavy. So I had to carry it and climb all those stairs. I mean, if there was a lift, it would have been easier for me. So these are the things you need to look out for when looking for accommodation, because if you're on the topmost floor of that building and there is no lift, you need to consider how you're able to carry your things from downstairs to upstairs, especially when you're moving in. Like, how do you carry your load? You really need to consider some things. Also, you need to check if you're someone that drives. You need to check how the parking space is in that particular accommodation. If you have a bicycle, you need to check if they have like bicycle storage, and you know, all these few things you need to check if they've considered that in that particular building. You can just ask your agent or ask your landlord if these things are being provided. The 9th thing here on my list is for you to read your contract. Anything that will require you to put in your signature, you really need to read that contract very well. You need to read in between the lines. For example, you need to know what happens before your contract ends. Like, let's assume that you're looking for a 6 months tenancy. You need to know what happens before the tenancy expires. Do you inform your landlord 3 months before the tenancy expires, or do you inform your landlord 1 month before your tenancy expires? So these are the things you need to know, because if you breach your contract, you might have to pay like a penalty fee. For example, if you're going to be moving out from a particular accommodation before your tenancy expires, you might need to bring someone into that particular accommodation before you leave, or you might have to pay like the remaining rent for that particular tenancy. So yes, you need to consider all these things, because you really don't want to breach contract and having to, you know, have cases with your landlord or with your agency. So these are the things you really need to look out for. Also, you need to agree on your move-in date. Most of the time when you're going through your tenancy agreement with your agency or your landlord, they expect you to move in like a week time, in few days. Like, you know, they expect you to move in immediately. But if you're not planning on moving immediately, let's assume that you're planning on moving in a month's time. I don't think they really agree, because I mean, they're losing money. So you need to agree on when you're planning on moving into that particular accommodation. So the last thing here on my list is rent and deposits. So yes, you found a house that you love, you're about to sign the contract, or you already signed it, and you're about to pay your rent. Most of the time, that first payment includes 2 months rent. The first one is your rent, and the second payment is your deposit. Most houses require you to pay deposits, even though some do not require deposits, but most of the time, the house that you might move into will require for you to pay deposits. The reason why you pay deposits is because if you're moving out of that particular accommodation and you spoil like 1 or 2 things, that is the money they are going to use for the repair of those things. So when they're done with the repair, they give you the balance of the money. So yeah, we have come to the end of this video. This list I gave you is basically from my personal experience. If you have any other tip that you can give, you can leave that in the comment section down below. And guys, I'll be seeing you in my next video. Do not forget to take care and stay safe. Bye guys.